The fourth studio album from Anthrax certainly gave them more commercial success, even putting them on an arena tour with Ozzy Osbourne. But did releasing a more polished and friendlier album for the masses in turn alienate some of their earlier fans? And despite all that, is it still a really good album? Well, stick around and let's go through that. So my personal history with this album is a pretty short story. I blind bought it when it came out based on the strength of the albums that came before it, chiefly Among the Living, so my expectations were already pretty high. At the time, those expectations were somewhat met, and I overall enjoyed the record. However, critics of the time were mixed on it, with many giving out lukewarm reviews. And since I already mentioned it, I did see Anthrax on this album's tour with Ozzy at the Centrum in Worcester, Massachusetts on December 10th, 1988. Great show, and I remember thinking it was pretty cool to see thrash bands getting this kind of attention in general. I'm also thinking Metallica on Ozzy's previous tour. State of Euphoria was also Anthrax's longest album to date, clocking in a little under 53 minutes, likely due to the rise of the compact disc format and its increased capacity. I mean, everyone's albums seemed to be getting longer and longer back then. This is also when they took another shot at having a cover tune on a full-length album, and with different results, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So anyways, enough of that, let's get to the track by track. Starting with side 1, track 1, we've got Be All, End All. So track opens with a somber cello passage that is quickly interrupted by head-banging guitar chords, following an almost tribal drum pattern that quickly grows and increases pace for the following section. And this flux in tempo is common for both this track and others. Joey's vocals are sharp and tight, intermittently bringing in his more aggressively melodic side. Riffing runs the gamut from chugs to power chords and pretty much everything else. Chorus is definitely of the sing-along variety, with backup vocals prominent, which is also common on this record. Cool breakdown segment about 4 minutes in that leads to a speed riff, and then Dan's almost playful but ripping solo. Then after a non-lyrical vocal chorus melody, it's back to the chorus proper, and then the end, including a bookending of the cello segment that opened the track. So the album starts very strong with a track that could have easily gotten along well with those on Among the Living. Really dig this song and wish many of the remaining tracks could have lived up to this powerful start. Moving on to track 2, we have Out of Sight, Out of Mind. So isolated thrash riff is quickly joined by the rest, along with a slow thrashing beat. Riffs jump quickly between ominous, choppy, chord-heavy, and speedy, which is now reminding me about how utterly riffy this album is. Tons of riffs, even in a single track. This is also where I'm starting to notice the lackluster mix here, but it really does happen throughout the album in general. Not a deal breaker, but there is a flatness here at times that's harder to ignore now than it was back then. After another verse and chorus, there is a short breakdown and bridge, then on to the solo, which has some really satisfying layering to it. It definitely shows off Dan's agility quite well. Have I ever mentioned that I miss Dan Spitz and Anthrax? Well, now I have. Anyways, lyrics here are pretty basic and also keeping with the Anthrax standard of griping about personality types that irk them. This is one of those songs for sure. Overall, another solid thrash tune, though not as dark as the first song by any stretch. Still like it though, and feel that the record though so far holds my attention. At least for now. Moving on to track 3, we've got Make Me Laugh. So an opening riff very different from the rest in that it's darkly melodic, with some wandering drum patterns in the background that build over time. It briefly alternates with a complementary riff, but then jumps to a machine gun riff, also alternating with another similar riff. I'm not counting or anything, but that's a whole lot of riffs in 60 seconds. Anyways, Joey's verse and pre-chorus lines vary between a lower register clean and his usual high melodic notes. A very strong chorus here, especially for Joey and his killer vocal melody for it. By comparison, I don't find the other segments vocally interesting, and you can even catch moments where Joey is kind of at the edge of his range, where his voice actually cracks a little. Also, there is a tendency to resort to staccato riffing throughout the album, and it really does result in some sameness, regardless of the otherwise riff overload. Anyways, like a lot of tracks to follow, this one is inspired by outside sources, albeit this time non-fictional. The lyrics take a healthy shot at televangelism, sometimes specifically at Jim and Tammy Faye Baker of the former Christian television program The PTL Club. Seems this topic was definitely fodder for many a metal song back then. I mean, just ask Ozzy, Metallica, Queensryche, and Metal Church, just to name a few. Anyways, this track would have worked better had the number of riffs been lessened, perhaps also by prioritizing the heavier and darker riffs instead, and Joey not jumping around so much in both pitch and cadence. It is a little all over the place at times, though still listenable. Largely, it's okay. Moving on to track 4, we have Antisocial. So a steady beat and ringing out chords transfer quickly to a thrash riff that, along with the beat, has a slight groove to it. Verse parts are fine, but I feel this song pretty much lives for the gang vocal choruses, simple as they might be. They even revisit it for the breakdown, and it's definitely a sing-along track at Anthrax shows, which is interesting because it's not their song. In fact, come to think of it, is this their Come On Feel the Noise? Maybe. At any rate, some great speed soloing follows, and that breakdown I mentioned, a bit of a refrain afterwards, and then the chorus to the end. So, as many know, this is a cover song originally done by the French hard rock band Trust, and appearing on original form on that band's Repression album from 1980. Anthrax's version is notably less poppy than the original, as well as they inject some heaviness and an up-tempo beat that gives the cover a bit more life. By comparison, the Trust version is a bit lethargic and lacking punch. Still, Anthrax's take on it heavily relies on a punchy chorus, with the remainder of the track being serviceable at best. It's fine, but not great. Moving on to track 5, we've got Who Cares Wins. So track opens with a slow and dark riff forming a clean intro, along with drum pattern to match, then builds up a little in tempo to bring in additional guitar and differing riff patterns, till we get to the crunching main riff, which is classic Anthrax. And like other tracks here and elsewhere from this band, we get the heavy verses and the anthemic choruses, with some of those hardcore gang shouts that spice things up a bit. Joey brings in additional aggression to fit the lyrics, which are of the social commentary variety, this time on the homeless. Truthfully, I've always found the lyrics of this track to be awkward and even a little simple, also kind of preachy. But barring that, there are some good performances from all involved, notably in the refrain and the bridge parts, though also in the catchy chorus. Also love the fade-out end riff and drum fills combo. So even with the goofy lyrics and the utterly stupid song name, I'm still giving this a like. Flipping over to side 2 and track 6, we have Now It's Dark. So a slowly building thrash riff and drum combo soon kick into headbanging levels, then ramp up the punch with the verse riff. Really like Joey's verse melody here, and especially the line, "One fucking well-dressed man." Also, more gang shouts for this chorus, which is likely one of my favorite choruses on the entire album. Super catchy and easy to sing along to. Bridge is decent, but a bit of a drop in quality, till we get to the insane solo work in which once again Dan really shines. Fewer riffs here, and the ones we do have are really something, so A++ there. I mean, sometimes keeping it simple actually works better. And needless to say, Charlie's drum work on this one is totally tight and with killer fills. So the track's lyrics are inspired by the 1986 David Lynch film Blue Velvet, and chiefly about its antagonist, Frank Booth. Great movie and a fun topic for a song, but putting aside my love for the movie, it's still a solid thrash track with fewer distractions than that of other songs here. Unfortunately, after this is where the record starts to nosedive a bit for me. Moving on to track 7, we've got Schism. So fade up of rapid drum pattern is joined by alternating speed and slow chug riffing with a solo flown over top. Love the bass work here, it's a little more prominent in this song than in many others. Verse riff has a bit of that head nodding quality to it and some super heavy riffing at times as well. The vocal melodies, however, often leave me cold. Anyways, lyrics are once again of the social commentary type, this time tackling racial prejudice. And we're hearing a lot of this from thrash bands, notably from the late 1980s on, and Nuclear Assault definitely comes to mind. Not always excited about these topics, and this one feels a bit corny and dated, but all that means is that I just focus on the music instead. Speaking of which, there are some dynamic moments here, as with other tracks on this album, but it just doesn't really make up for how plodding much of this song really is. So anyways, the track is fine, but it feels a lot weaker than what came before it at best, and filler at worst. Even the lead work is not as strong as other solos throughout, regardless of an impressive speed run about midway through. Moving on to track 8, we have Misery Loves Company. So track starts with slamming drums and chugging riffs, joined by Joey alternating between his usual melodic aggression and this weird raspy whisper voice for the verses. Not sure the latter works, to be honest. Then it gets to a much better pre-chorus, which is punchy as all hell and really the best part of the song. Chorus is fine, but lackluster by comparison to other choruses on the record. I do dig the vocal lines right before the solo, which bring back some of the impact from the pre-choruses. Then it's on to an eerily melodic and at times shreddy solo, which is the second best part of the song. Also, I do like the fade out of Joey's final note and the pitch drop of the track's end. Also, not the first song from Anthrax about a Stephen King story or novel, as we had two of them on Among the Living, both the title track, which references The Stand, and A Skeleton in the Closet, which draws from Apt Pupil. And what a lot of people don't know is that another Anthrax song, this time on their Spreading the Disease album, pulls from King's Dark Tower series character, the Gunslinger. That's the song Lone Justice. So, lots of horror nerding out from this band, for sure. Anyways, a fairly uneven track with equal parts good and okay, so kind of in the middle with this one. Moving on to track 9, we've got 13. So, yeah, it's a little less than a minute and more of an intro to the final song, so let's just touch on it briefly. Track opens with a repetitive bass line and then followed by silly electronic sounds and a drum pattern that could have come from a toy monkey. Over top, this is some sort of distant gang chant, a cartoony voice saying something indecipherable in parts. Some people theorize it's ding dong, it's 13, or something to that effect. You decide, I guess, or let me know in the comments if you know better than I do. Anyways, it's as pointless as those dumb jams they wore on stage back then, but it does bring something up, and that's this band's conspicuous flirtation with goofiness in this era, more or less starting with I'm the Man and extending to Starting Up a Posse, but there were other moments as well. Honestly, I never liked the jokey version of Anthrax, and I'm glad it's largely missing on some of my favorite albums from this band. And that's about it. Moving on to track 10, we have Finale, or Finally, as it's pronounced in the song. Either basically works here. Anyways, the lead-in riff is fucking great, along with the relentless accompanying drum pattern. Of course, it switches gears quickly to a decent, but not as awesome riff. Then vocals come in and they're almost playful and happy, which takes us into the utterly juvenile pre-chorus with its childlike taunting tone. Hate the pre-chorus, and I always have. The lyrics throughout are also simplistic and kinda dumb when you actually think about it. Best parts of this song are the riffs outside of the pre-choruses and choruses. That doesn't really make a song great. First bridge is actually a step up though. The second bridge follows musically, but really dumpster dives for the stupidest lyrics of the entire album. I'm not even talking about the gay slur in there. Anyways, the actual finale of Finale, or Finally, is speedy and frantic and fun, but it's just not a saving grace. So here are the point totals. 60% makes a lot of sense for me. I mean, more than half of the album is decent to good, but is held down by other musical moments. Looking back, I might have liked Antisocial a little more then as opposed to now. Also loved Now It's Dark as well as Be All End All. Surprised I liked Who Cares Wins as much as I did. I mean, I kind of expected to now hate the song for its cloying lyrics, but the music was good. And those last two tracks were maybe okay to me as a kid, but I just can't stand them anymore. Anyways, what might be surprising to some is that State of Euphoria actually performed a lot better than Among the Living, despite the latter having more memorable songs that are also part of Anthrax's ongoing set lists. For the most part, the State of Euphoria tracks that get played live, or still get played now, are Antisocial and sometimes Be All End All, but mostly just Antisocial, while Among the Living often gets preference with up to 4 songs from that album played live, such being Caught in a Mosh, I Am the Law, Indians, and Ifel Nick Fessin, NFL. Regardless, State charted at 30 on the Billboard 200, while Among peaked out at 62 on the same chart. State also charted in 11 countries, whereas Among only 6. State even outsold Among by about 50,000 units. Of course, I feel compelled to also mention the I'm the Man EP at this point, which came out 10 months before State of Euphoria, and it sold incredibly well, even reaching platinum status, and their only platinum release ever, by the way. So it's possible that State of Euphoria sold well based somewhat on the popularity of I'm the Man in general, and with more established fans like me buying it because it followed a totally killer full-length album. Still, if you ask a lot of Anthrax fans, many of them do point to Among the Living as their favorite, and not State of Euphoria. But yes, State of Euphoria has its fans, and I'll no doubt be hearing from a bunch of you very, very soon. In fact, it's kind of guaranteed. And if wondering how the band felt, they were a bit divided on this record, stating that it wasn't fully realized and could have been improved with more time in the studio. A tight touring schedule is often credited as one of the reasons why they felt so rushed to record the album. Charlie didn't like the mix, and Scott didn't like much of the record, period. And again, a lot of people picked the record before this, or sometimes even the one after this, as their personal favorite. But how do I feel about this record? In addition to many of the points I already mentioned, it's still not a strong record for me, and I don't find myself going to it all that often when wanting to hear this band. Most of the time it's Among the Living or Persistence of Time or even Sound of White Noise. But I do like the last two records they did as well. Hell, I might even put on Fistful of Metal if I'm feeling a little nostalgic. In any case, State of Euphoria is good at times, but not my top pick of Anthrax albums, either from the 1980s or even from their entire discography. So how do you feel about State of Euphoria? And if you liked it in the past, has your opinion changed over the years, for better or for worse? Let me know that and anything else that makes sense in the comments below. Definitely love to hear from you. And of course, if you're just joining me here for the first time, my name is Matt. This is the Accusation Network, where each and every week I do videos on metal vinyl collecting, but also classic and modern metal in general. If you like the sound of that and you have yet to subscribe to my channel, definitely hit that subscribe button. I would super appreciate it. Also, maybe give a like to this video and share this and other videos of mine out with your friends on social media. Of course, thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.